Hey everyone, it's Mari. Thank you so much for stopping by my channel today. I have a card making process for the Not2Shabby shop today. I am going to leave a link in the description box to Jamie's shop, and I will also leave a coupon code in the description box below. I love Jamie's shop. She has so many awesome products and some really great deals, and so make sure you check that out. I am going to use some Sunny Studio products on my project today, including this really beautiful pink Peonies stamp set. I love this stamp set. I love the scale of the flowers. I love that best wishes sentiment. And I also love that it comes with the companion dies, or you can buy the companion dies for the stamp set as well, which I did. I really love this. And this is the stamp set that Jamie sent me this month to work with. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. I'm also going to be working with the Sunny Studio Frilly Frames Eyelet Lace die set, and these are going to be my three main products that I'll work with to create my project today. Now, when you cut out, I'm just showing you some of the watercolors there that I'm thinking about using on my project. Now, when you cut out that Frilly Frames Eyelet Lace section, so that center section, there are some little tiny bits to get out of the little areas that cut. So this tool I'm showing you here with a little magnet on the end and the little brush on the other end is from Sizzix. And I'm just showing you how the magnet works on the end. You can just stick your dies there briefly while you're working on your project so you don't lose them, any of those tiny little die pieces. And what you do is you put the little foam piece that comes with the brush, you put that underneath your project, and then you just take the brush and you roll it over top of all the little areas to release the tiny little bits of paper that are stuck in there after you die cut your paper with that little frilly lace inlay piece. Now, there's a lot of tiny little pieces, but this little tool is amazing for getting those out. So it really saves you a lot of time. This only took me like a matter of seconds to get all of these released. And I'm just showing you how easy that is with this Sizzix tool. So I really love this tool. I think it's awesome. I will link it up in the description box below if you don't have this or you're looking for something like this. I really like this one. So now you can see that most of those little pieces are released. There might just be a couple of other little ones. I'll just take my little Tim Holtz picker tool and just release those few little tiny pieces that are left. And I did use my shim, my metal shim with my Big Shot when I cut this out, just to get all those fine little areas. Now I'll show you this little hack too. This is a really easy way to pick up all those tiny little bits. You just take a lint brush and just roll it over your little area, because there was a lot of tiny little pieces that came out of that after I die cut that, and then that just fixes that right up. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that frilly frame that's also part of this Sunny Studio die set, and I'm just going to stick that down to my paper once I've kind of got it centered with a little bit of Post-it tape. And now I ran that through my Big Shot, and you can see it just creates this really beautiful border with a tiny little bit of like faux stitching detail with it as well. And I love that. Now I'm going to take a couple of Distress Oxide inks and just do a little bit of blending with Squeeze Lemonade and with Worn Lipstick Distress Oxide inks. And I'm just going to use a couple of blending brushes here to blend this out and create a nicely blended sort of background for my card front. So the color scheme that I'm going for here today is pink and yellow, and I am going to color in watercolor my floral pieces with pink and yellow as well. So my peonies are going to be pink and yellow. So I'm just finishing that up. I'm just going to blend this out nicely. And I love how these inks blend. I am working on Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I do find that the ink blending is really nice on that type of paper, because the paper is coated and the ink just blends nicely. Now, I do apologize for my table shaking during this process. I work on an IKEA table. It has legs on it rather than a solid pedestal. So what that means is it's a little bit wobbly, and when I'm really aggressively ink blending, it does wobble a little bit here. And so that causes a little bit of shaking on the camera. So I do apologize for that. I have sped this up considerably so that it doesn't take forever on camera for me to do this blending. But I think I have sped this up about 4 times. so that it goes a little bit faster. But it actually does not take that long to do this. It's a pretty simple and easy process. But I did want to just speed it up a little bit just so that it goes a bit faster for you to watch. And you'll notice that where the pink and the yellow meet in the center, it definitely creates a little bit of an orange tone. And I love that. I think that's super pretty. And that is one of the reasons why I blended them together, because I knew that I would be okay with that blend. Now I am going to take some sheer shimmer spritz from Imagine Crafts, and I'm going to spritz my project with that product. I love this stuff. It's just a wonderful way to add some shine all over your project. And I would recommend putting a little bit of paper towel first down so that you don't end up with shimmer spritz everywhere. And you'll just see I'm taking my tool here to dry that up, my heat tool, and there you can just see the beautiful shimmer and shine. I will link that shimmer spritz down at the bottom for you. This is some Fabriano Artistico watercolor paper. I really love this because it's the size of a card front, or at least a reasonable facsimile. It is 5x7 and it is hot press, so it's nice and smooth, 140 pound. It's great for crafting with. And I really love using this for this particular application. So what I'm going to do is put that into my Misty stamping tool. This is a repositionable stamping tool that allows me to stamp more than once if I don't get my image quite as nicely as I want it. I took my anti-static powder tool and treated my paper with that so that I only have my embossing powder sticking where I want it to, which is to the ink. And so I'm going to take some Lawn Fawn ink here. This is some clear ink that's super sticky, and it just creates an impression on your paper that your embossing powder is going to stick to. So I'm going to stamp that out and get that all nicely inked up, and I'm just going to double stamp it to make sure that I've got lots of ink down. And then I'm just going to take my Brutus Monroe embossing powder, and what I'm using here is a white embossing powder. It's ultra fine, and the color is, or the name of it is, Alabaster. I really love this embossing powder. I think it works really well. And what I wanted to do was emboss in white and then do some watercoloring in the little wells that are created with that embossing ridge on the paper. So I just spread that embossing powder over top of my paper here where I have my ink, and you can see the embossing powder just sticks nicely to the ink. And now I'll just get that all cleaned up. I will use my really hot heat tool. This is my old Stampin' Up! Heat tool. I will link a different heat tool in the description box down below that's basically going to do the same thing for you. This specific type of tool gets much hotter than my other little tool, and it's got a tinier area where it blows the heat out so that it's more concentrated, and it does just really nicely melt that embossing powder, and then you end up with just this really nice embossed image. And now I'm going to watercolor. I tried a few watercolors out here, and how I did that was I just put my project to the left that I'm color matching to, and I tried out some different things. I've got some Gonzai Tombi shimmery paints, and I've got my Art Philosophy by Prima shimmering watercolors. These are metallic pastel paints, and those are the ones that I end up using. So I will link these as well in the description box below so that if you're interested in finding these, you can find those as well. Now I just used a piece of scrap watercolor paper to try those colors out on to make sure that I liked them. And when I found the ones that I liked, then that's what I went for. And of course, now I'm going to go ahead and paint with those. So this is a silver brush, and I am forgetting right now what size I'm using, but I think it's a number 6. I will link it in the description box below so that you can know for sure which brush I'm using. But the nice thing about the silver brush is it kind of has a nice little tip on the end of it for getting into finer areas. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing a wet on wet method here. I'm just putting some water into the embossed area of the flower, and then I'm just lightly dropping in some color. I'm putting more color in where I want the color to be more intense. I'm taking my little paper towel and I am sucking up some of the color, dabbing it off where I need to if I feel like the color is too intense. I can even dry my brush a little bit on the paper towel and then go back into the areas that are really wet and take some of the color out if I want. So I can use all of those different methods to do my watercoloring here, and it's really quick and simple. Now, the reason why I chose these metallic paints is because they're super shimmery and shiny, and I just felt like that went along with my card that I'm making today. So because I added that shimmer spritz, I just wanted a little bit of shimmer and shine with my peonies as well. And for the leaves, I'm just going to use that kind of mint green color in this color palette as well. I don't think I end up showing you that, but it's just the same process. Now I'm just going to take all of those dies from the pink Peonies die set from Sunny Studio, and I'm just cutting those. I've cut those all out now. I'm just releasing those from the dies, and I'm going to start working on placement of these now these die cut pieces on my little eyelet base. So I just kind of wanted just a really pretty bouquet of these peonies on the front. My idea was that this could be for an anniversary, and the card kind of ends up looking a little bit vintagey in that way. So I thought it might be good for an anniversary. It could also be a really nice wedding card as well. And the sentiment on the front of the card is going to be best wishes. So I'm just kind of loosely placing these to kind of get an idea of where I might want things to go. I do end up changing this slightly as I'm working away on the card, but I just was kind of playing around with the pieces and seeing which ones I wanted to use and maybe which ones I'll save for another project, etc. So getting those just sort of placed around, trying them out, auditioning them, so to speak, in different areas. So now that I've thought that through, I wanted to I'm looking at the card and I'm thinking the color is a little bit too, even though it's soft, it's just a little bit too bright for the color value in those peonies. So I decided I wanted to take some watered down acrylic white paint and just splatter that onto this little eyelet lace area. And I like how that looks when it's all done. Now I've got my peonies placed on here and I'm ready to stick them down. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my Nouveau glue. I love this glue. And I'm going to also use a little bit of dimensional foam adhesive as well. Now, what I really love about that Nouveau glue is it doesn't dry immediately. There's a little bit of wiggle room time with it. And I also like how the tip of the glue is really fine and you can get into some really nice tiny spots with it. So I use that often in my card making process. So now I'm just taking that dimensional adhesive and all of the other blooms that I'm adding in there, I'm adding with some dimension. So just that one peony blossom at the very top, our flower at the top, I added just with the liquid adhesive, and all of the other pieces I'm adding with foam just to give them a little bit of dimension. All of those leaves, I am going to just put a little bit of that Nouveau glue on again at the tip and stick those in kind of here and there. I'm going to only end up using 3 of the leaves. That one little yellow peony flower I'm going to stick in my stash and use on another project, so that I have an odd number of flowers and an odd number of leaves. And usually when you're composing something like this, it's nice to stick with an uneven number of things. It's just more pleasing to the eye. Now, I thought I was going to use craft on this project, craft paper. I don't in the end, but you'll just watch and see what I end up doing. I cut this frame out of using a My Favorite Things stitched frame die, and I adhered it now with some foam adhesive to some vellum. And now what I did was I took a 1/2 inch piece of craft foam and I scored it at 1/4 of an inch, so that now I have a 1/4 of an inch piece of paper here that's folded in the center, so that if I folded it out, it would be a 1/2 inch strip with that fold in the center. I'm putting a little bit of score tape on this, and I'm going to adhere this to the side of this card piece that I'm adding in here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick that down, and I'm kind of making a window for the front of my card. So I've stamped out that best wishes on that vellum piece, and I actually heat embossed that with some clear embossing powder. And now I'm going to just put this little hinge, so to speak, on the side of that. So I'll just adhere that down with my double-sided adhesive. And this is just a really, really strong adhesive that's going to nicely keep this in place where I want it. And now what I'm going to do is just trim off that extra. And I will put a little bit of that, a smaller double-sided adhesive on the other side of that. And you can see how I'm going to add that to that card. And it's just going to sort of be like a little hinged door on the front of my project. So I'm going to get that stuck down, and then it's just going to open up. And I'm not loving that craft. As I'm working away here, I'm thinking, this craft paper was the wrong choice. So I do end up changing it to a gray cardstock. I am going to stick this down though, but I end up taking it off. So it's a good thing it came off easily. And now you can see here I've adhered it all down to a piece of gray cardstock. And then I also cut the frame around the front, and I also on the inside edge with a glittery cardstock, and that's a Lawn Fawn cardstock. So that's going to be my card. I do have some still shots here for you to check the card out up close, and I hope you enjoyed this. Don't forget to check out the links in the description box below to the Not2Shabby shop. Thanks so much for stopping by, and I hope to see you again. Bye-bye.